Yvonne was a member of the Schizophrenia Commission, and she used her experiences to shape the Commission report. She's got a fabulous T-shirt on, if I may say so. She's a campaigner and an activist, and she has a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder.
I do.
She currently works at Thames Reach Homeless Charity on the Washington Project Hostel, working collaboratively with psychologists and psychiatrists from SLAM. So, Yvonne, it would be great to hear your perceptions on progress against those.
Thank you. Right, so good evening, everybody. Can you hear me at the back? Good, I'm going to shout up. Yes, I work for the Waterloo Project, Thames Reach, and I have been working there. In April, it will be 11 years. So, of course, I was well into it by the time, the Schizophrenia Commission got on its way. But, of course, during that time, of course, I've had, relapses with my schizoaffective disorder and imprisonments and all of this kind of business, inpatient stay and disciplinaries and all of that. My employers haven't had it easy. I have sort of like made them sort of like show their loyalty, and I have in return given them my loyalty, and so. The Schizophrenia Commission, I thank Rethink Mental Illness for putting that on the table and for it, for the way in which we handled it and what has come out of it from then. We have recommended that there would be more employment, more peer mentoring and stuff, and from my perspective I can see that in my personal workplace and stuff, if you sort of like imagine me as a Pinocchio and stuff, and see that in order for me to keep my job, because it's one thing having the job as somebody with schizoaffective disorder, and especially a robust sort of like schizoaffective disorder that I have and stuff, but it's another to keep the job and stuff and remain in post and stuff. So for me, I need a third sector Lambeth hub professionals managing my mental health care and stuff. And so they do that and stuff in the community in collaboration with my employers and stuff, and also at the same time in their sort of like teams they engage Mosaic Clubhouse, which has also got people with mental health issues and stuff, and they employ them to sort of like take care of their administration and stuff and sort of train them. So like Mosaic Clubhouse trains them, and third party sector utilises them and sort of like employs them in giving a service and stuff which utilises the sort of like what was once people who never had a chance, couldn't get anywhere. They were sort of like given the diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, you name it, psychosis, and they were sort of like, that was it, that was over. There was no more employment, there was no more anything. There was a poverty of aspiration and stuff. So they do that. In my team for Thames Reach, I work very, very closely indeed with psychologists and psychiatrists and stuff from SLAM, South London and Maudsley Psychiatric Hospital, Foundation Trust, NHS Foundation Trust, and with them they also employ peer mentors and stuff and supervise them. So, and we work collaboratively. We have a thing called PI, which I take a very big bite out of, which is a psychologically informed environment and stuff. And it's a psychologically informed environment in hostels. They do it across the hostels, and in Lambeth, they're there and stuff. And so psychologists work with us, the psychiatrists work with us, because we work with sort of like a real marginalised, stigmatised, ostracised people who, you know, like nobody else can sort of like reach and stuff, who are in need of psychiatric services and often don't get them because they're in prisons or wherever they are and stuff like that, and they do their thing. So like at the end of the day, we work with that. So like, I'm working within that team, if you can imagine it, and we have a thing called reflective practice, where everybody sort of like has an input into the care, the personal centred approach that we use on every client within the hostel and stuff. And so I take my part as one of the members of the team and stuff to do that. And you know, like my sort of like community psychiatric nurse who works for a third sector, is also partly SLAM employed, partly sort of third sector employed, works with me to maintain my job in that way. So, and she also don't shoot the messenger. She's doing her job and stuff. She is also allowing me to sort of like run for the third time for councillor for my local Brixton Cold Harbour ward and stuff at the next local election. I won't tell you which party because I don't want you to go running, screaming for the hills and stuff. But anyway, she does do that and stuff. And with her backing, I have sort of like developed, and my team, because like it's very much, you know, at the start of the sort of the commission, there was not equal marriage, and so this is something that has come in and stuff. And me being all things LGBT and stuff, had on my care plan, you know, my care coordinator back in the day for my community mental health team would want to sort of like put down that my diagnosis or my illness was affected by my fixation on LGBT and stuff, and she wanted to put that on there. But since equal marriage, I've sort of persuaded her back in the day, and since the commission has been in fruition, that please don't and stuff, it's okay. So like now I've been able to sort of like get on with other things with my care coordinator now. My not care coordinator, she's not a care coordinator, she's my community mental health third sector worker, professional, and she has helped me to send money to Jamaica to start up a business to sort of like build a community centre, advice centre, and a Quaker meeting house and stuff, which is all inclusive. So if I'm not here next time, you know what's happened and stuff. So anyway, you know, I think, you know, like in many ways, there has been lots of positives, and I've seen them with my own eyes. I've watched in my community, in my Brixton local community and stuff, and I've spoken to other people. And I've also seen negatives. And one of the negatives that I want to say is that it's unfortunate that, and I've experienced this myself, that people with schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, psychosis, they may, if they write a will, their wills may not be valid and stuff, and seen to have much weight because of that diagnosis and stuff, and they may not get their desires met and stuff. And it's, you know, like it's a difficult thing to sort of like accept, because we don't talk about death, but since, you know, like you know, many of us die 20 years before their time, I think it's something worth thinking about, that if somebody writes what they want, you know, that it needs to be honoured, especially if they write a memorandum and stuff. And if they write a memorandum and it is not recognised, then we need to think about that. So I want to thank everybody for their part, for coming here this evening. I want to thank Rethink Mental Illness, as I say, who are a champion organisation, you know, like many of the other charities that work alongside them and with them and campaign in their own rights and stuff. And I want to thank you all for coming and stuff and taking your time to be here this evening. Because as you can see, I don't bite often. Okay, thank you.
So, last but of course not least, is Professor Sir Robin Murray. He really needs no introduction. He was, of course, the chair of the Schizophrenia Commission, and as if that's not enough, today he became the chair of Rethink's newly established clinical advisory group. Now, what an accolade that is. He really has made it. He's punched through that glass ceiling. But I mean, I think more than anybody in the country, and you know, almost in the world, he's done so much to transform our understanding of schizophrenia. So I think beyond that, Robin, you need no introduction. So
thanks very much. Thanks to you, Yvonne. When I look back on the Schizophrenia Commission,
2 or 3 questions. I'm going to say questions because sometimes we do tend to get speeches at our events. So I'm just going to ask if anybody's got a question that they would like to put to Philippa or Robin or Yvonne.
Robert, I have. I'm Catherine Gamble from the Royal College of Nursing, and I can't thank you enough, and also for your description about community psychiatric nurses. I really think there is a really missed opportunity to support nurses to become more trained in interventions that make a difference. Have you any ideas about how that might happen? Both from your, as a service user's point of view, and also from your point of view as a psychiatrist.
I'm actually surprised why it's so difficult. I mean, psychiatrists are always getting invited to conferences, or going off on conferences, and psychologists likewise. And who's running the shop? The nurses are running the shop, so it's much more difficult for them to get time off. But 30 years ago, there were nurses who were behaviour therapy nurses. Where are the CBT nurses? There are a few of them. I think, of course, there are interprofessional rivalries, and psychiatrists are worried that psychologists are taking some of their work. Psychologists are a bit worried about whether nurses could take over a lot of CBT. So I think we have to realise that there's not enough of us to go round. So the more skills that we can all get and share, and actually carers and advocates as well. But maybe I think this is a very, there's just how many mental health nurses are there in the country compared with how many psychologists? Just vast numbers.
Another question. Yeah, Adrian.
Adrian James with Royal College of Psychiatrists. Well, I have to take on the chin your remarks about psychiatrists not campaigning. You're very welcome, any of the speakers, to join us on many campaigns.
Really exceptional.
But my question is, you mentioned hope, but what about ambition? I mean, when I came into psychiatry 30 years ago, there were all sorts of assumptions about outcomes for people with schizophrenia. And I also thought, that if you assume that certain things are going to happen, for example, if you have schizophrenia, you won't work, that's kind of what happens. And I wondered what each of the speakers could say about that. How ambitious should we be, but also acknowledging the challenges, the real challenges that people face?
Robin, do you want to? Somebody else. Philippa, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm a carer for a son with schizophrenia, and he's been ill, or he was first ill 20 years ago. And I think I haven't been ambitious enough, but I've probably been more ambitious than some because of my very helpful links with Rethink Mental Illness. And in fact, we heard about, we were having a meeting this afternoon, we were talking, it was Robin who said it, about learned helplessness amongst mental health professionals.
I think I've learnt a bit of learned helplessness from the people I've had to deal with. I'm not trying to put my faults and blame onto other people unnecessarily, but I think you can get into this downward spiral. They don't have much hope, and it transmits itself to you. And I think if I was to do the whole thing again, I think I would be more hopeful. But how did I know?
It is one of Rethink's values. Yvonne, what's your view on that?
Yeah, there's a certain amount of poverty of aspiration, that phrase again, and stuff. And back in the day it was very, very common and stuff. And some of it is about fear, and some of it is about stepping into the unknown and stuff. And some of it is about, it's not that people are not sort of like busting the poverty of aspiration, but they're not actually sort of like, they're hiding their light under a bushel. So you don't actually know who has experienced these things, who's not actually talking about it and stuff, and sort of like quietly, gingerly, sort of like tentatively step forward or sort of like attain new heights and stuff. And so people have a lack of role models, like both everywhere they look and stuff. And so I suppose for me, what sort of like made the difference was people who I had met who had that condition, who wouldn't conform to the stereotype of what that poverty of aspiration told them that they must be and stuff. And like looking at them, I sort of like stepped slightly further than them and sort of like met with other people who wanted to try something. Because like back in the day, people told me, no, you'll never work again. You've been through such a traumatic time. And, you'll never have children. I've got an 18-year-old son. Like at the end of the day, you never... at the end of the day, they had no end of it. You never work, you never, as I said, I've heard a lot of it and stuff. And when you sort of like believe it and sort of like absorb it, eventually it slows you down and it slows other people down. And because they care, people care, they almost feel your pain and stuff. And that stops them from sort of like giving you a little bit more of a carrot to sort of like dangle, to sort of like encourage you and stuff like that, and say, okay, well, let's try this. That didn't work, let's have a look at that, or whatever it is and stuff like that. A lot of it is poverty of aspiration. But the thing is, we know better now and stuff. We know different and stuff. And basically what you need with what Schizophrenia Commission did, which was valuable, is the peer mentoring and stuff, because it meant that and I don't say this to be funny, but sort of like things like 12-step programs like Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff, whereby the alcoholic back in the day was so washed up that nobody could trust him to do anything and stuff like that. He became, or she became, the person that could inspire and mentor other people to go forward. And that is what is necessary in these circles.
I think that's a really important point. That's a really important challenge to the system as a whole about how the desire to care can sometimes play out as a desire to protect, and that in turn plays out as a desire not to push somebody. So, Robin, I'm going to give you the last word.
No, but much the same. But Yvonne is talking about overcoming trauma. She's talking about the time when I was her psychiatrist and she had to overcome this trauma. So she survived it and went on to better things. I think the College of Psychiatrists has been doing a lot better in terms of actually collaborating with other groups, but also getting on the media and putting forward their point of view. I think it's more the mental health teams at local level. I went to a meeting about 6 months ago with this many psychiatrists all moaning about austerity and so on. So has anybody seen their MP? Had anybody gone on television? Had anybody talked to a reporter? Zilch. So I think if only we could, there's more hope amongst people suffering. We need to have more hope and activity amongst mental health professionals, I think.
Good. Well, listen, thank you all very much for coming. Thank you to our three fantastic speakers. I'm sure you'll want to have another round of applause. We have venue until 8:30. We have some wine and much food to eat, so please do stay, do talk, do find out more.